French President Emmanuel Macron visited Beijing for his fourth official visit amid intensifying Russian attacks on Ukrainian energy infrastructure and the prospect of a Donald Trump presidency. The three-day visit with President Xi Jinping was characterized less by breakthroughs and more by a carefully choreographed display of persistent differences, veiled warnings, and selective areas of cooperation. The visit began with full military honors at the Great Hall of the People, a display that China used to signal that France remains a privileged European partner that Beijing hopes to peel away from the broader Western bloc. For Macron, the trip was an attempt to extract concessions on the war in Ukraine and protect French agricultural exports from looming Chinese retaliatory tariffs. The war in Ukraine was the central, urgent issue for the French side. As the conflict nears its fourth year, Russian forces have destroyed or damaged about 50% of Ukraine's power generation capacity. The International Energy Agency warns that without a winter ceasefire on critical infrastructure, up to 11 million Ukrainians could face prolonged blackouts. European leaders fear that a potential Trump-brokered settlement could freeze the front lines and reward Russian territorial gains. Days before, Macron had hosted President Zelensky, reaffirming that Europe would not accept an imposed peace. 21-gun salute. Macron pressed Xi at length to use China's considerable leverage over Moscow. China remains Russia's top trading partner, with bilateral trade reaching $240 billion in 2024, a 26% increase from pre-war levels. Beijing has supplied dual-use components, microelectronics, and machine tools that have sustained Russian military production, while Russia has become China's largest supplier of discounted oil. However, Xi did not indicate a shift in course. In public remarks, he reiterated that Beijing would play a constructive role in seeking a political settlement, while firmly rejecting any attempts to shift blame onto third parties. This was an unmistakable refusal to join Western pressure on Moscow. China consistently frames the conflict as a European security crisis provoked by NATO, not an unprovoked Russian invasion. China's two vague peace initiatives, a 12-point paper in February 2023 and a 6-point joint statement with Brazil in May 2024, have been dismissed by Kyiv and its partners as favoring Moscow. Neither document mentions Russian withdrawal or Ukrainian territorial integrity. Instead, they emphasize an immediate ceasefire, which would freeze Russian control over roughly 19% of Ukraine. Western intelligence assesses that Beijing's priority is preventing a total Russian collapse that would destabilize Vladimir Putin rather than forcing Moscow into concessions. On the economic front, the atmosphere was slightly more productive. Both sides signed cooperation agreements in areas including civil nuclear energy, agriculture and food safety, and environmental protection. Xi expressed willingness to import more high-quality French agricultural products. This signal was welcomed, as China had previously threatened retaliatory tariffs on French pork, dairy, and brandy, in response to EU anti-subsidy duties on Chinese electric vehicles. France exports roughly $1.8 billion in pork and $1.2 billion in dairy to China annually, and such tariffs would devastate rural French constituencies. A symbolically important moment was Xi's announcement of a new round of cooperation on giant panda conservation. After two pandas, Yuan Ming and Huan Lili, were returned to China earlier in 2025, the new deal suggests France will receive another pair, a classic tool of Chinese panda diplomacy. Taiwan cast a long shadow over the visit. Days before, Japan's Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba stated that a Chinese attack on Taiwan would be an existential threat to Japan, and Tokyo would consider all options, including direct military involvement. Beijing reacted strongly, summoning the Japanese ambassador. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi warned his French counterpart, Jean-Noël Barrot, about the serious harm caused by Japan's position, urging France to support China's stance. The official French readout omitted mention of Taiwan or Japan. While neither leader raised the issue publicly, Xi repeatedly urged France to preserve strategic autonomy and make independent decisions amid global volatility, a code for resisting US-led containment. China hopes Macron's desire for Europe to avoid becoming a vassal of Washington will translate into softer French positions on Taiwan, technology restrictions, and de-risking from China. Macron acknowledged global imbalances but offered no concessions on core European security interests. Analysts describe the visit as a holding operation. No breakthroughs, no public ruptures, and just enough economic sweeteners to prevent immediate trade escalation. Ultimately, the meeting reaffirmed China's rhetorically neutral but practically pro-Russian stance on the war, while opportunistically using economic engagement to keep Paris from full alignment with Washington. As the political and battlefield dynamics remain deadlocked, Beijing appears content to wait, preserve its strategic partnership with Moscow, and let others bear the costs of prolonged conflict.